With great pleasure, we welcome back to the show Louisiana Senator Mr. John Kennedy. Senator Kennedy, always a pleasure, sir. So, bigger, more beautiful. Mr. Trump says, yes, go ahead. Speaker Johnson says, not too much. How do you read it right now, Senator Kennedy?
We'll end up passing something. I don't know what that something will look like. Senator Johnson makes some good points.
Hey everyone, welcome back to True Voice, where we say what needs to be said and stand up for the values that make this country worth fighting for. I'm Andrew, your host, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss the truth behind the noise. Today we're reacting to a recent video featuring Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana. Let's watch.
We do need to work towards spending less in this bill. I'm not real crazy about the changes that the House made, for example, to the SALT deduction. I will support reducing spending to the point that we run out of votes. I mean, we've got to pass a bill. You know, some people have a greater appetite for reducing spending. I'm one of them than others. But we'll get it done. If I were Senator Thune, though, I would give us a time limit. This bill's not like wine. It doesn't get better with age. We've got to wrap this up in about the next 60 days, and probably the president will have to get involved. It won't be unanimous on our side. Senator Paul, who I respect, Rand's not going to vote for anything ever. I mean, he's just not. And so you just got to throw that one away.
You know, that raising the deduction for the SALT, state and local tax deduction, that you're not fond of, neither am I, by the by, as you probably know, that is a very expensive proposition, taking that deduction from $10,000 to $40,000, whatever else bells or whistles are on that thing. That is costing at least $300 billion. That's an awfully big price tag for only a handful of states. And I note, as I'm sure you're well aware of, in the Senate, there are no blue state senators that would particularly benefit from that. So maybe that one is going to be changed. What you think, Senator?
Well, I think it'll be changed. Look, the increasing the SALT deduction, it only helps. It helps New York. It helps Illinois. It helps New Jersey. And all we're doing by increasing the SALT deduction is encouraging those states to just raise taxes and run people off. That's all we're doing. I understand the Congress people who in those states who are on the Republican side of the aisle who needed to get reelected, but they don't need a 3 or 4 times increase in the SALT deduction. They just don't, and I think they'll accept less. They won't be happy, and they may have to fill out a hurt feelings report, but they'll accept something lower.
Let's move on. I want to talk about Harvard.
Okay.
I didn't go to Harvard. I don't think you went to Harvard. I'm not sure about that, but I didn't. Anyway, President Trump coming down very hard on Harvard and writing on Truth Social. He now is thinking about taking all their grant money and turning it over to trade schools, community colleges, and the like. And I think that's a very interesting idea. And no matter what Harvard keeps saying and dodging, the reality is they haven't licked their anti-Semitism or other DEI kinds of culture war woke things that we want to get rid of. So what do you make of this Harvard fiasco?
Well, here's what I hear President Trump saying. Harvard is an overpriced indoctrination mill. There are other schools, but Harvard is the leader of the pack. The purpose of higher education is to make you think, not make you feel comfortable. The purpose of higher education is to teach you a variety of points of view. Harvard doesn't practice that. Harvard practices its faculty and its administration, ideology, conformity, ideology capture. And from their point of view, they believe in only certain things, and you can't believe in anything else. For example, they believe in racial quotas. Well, they're illegal. Harvard believes in diversity, equity, inclusion, and the right to hurt Jewish people. Well, that's illegal. Now, they're entitled to believe what they want, but they're not entitled to break the law and still get taxpayer money. I would take the money, and let me just say this, universities are not the only places that can do research. I would take a big chunk of this money and give it to what we call DARPA. Most people haven't heard of it. It's called the Defense Advanced Projects or
Research
Agency. Yeah. It's in the Department of Defense, DARPA we call it. They discovered the internet. They invented GPS. I would load DARPA down with so much money that they'd be bow-legged. I'd also like to point out, we've got to be careful here. Not all schools are like Harvard. I'll give you two examples. The University of Chicago and Vanderbilt University. They had both practiced viewpoint diversity, and I don't think they ought to be punished. But Harvard's attitude is we can do what we want, and we have a constitutional right to the money, and I think they're wrong, and I think they're going to find out how wrong they are.
You know, we've talked on this show from the DHS circular, Secretary Kristi Noem, Harvard financing Chinese Communist Party paramilitary people. Harvard financing that. And they don't want to tell the administration who and how many exactly foreign students they have, whether they have visas or not, or basically what they're doing there. I mean, it isn't as though it's all study, and it isn't as though they're friends of ours. I mean, I just think that is a very arrogant point of view by the college's standpoint. I mean, I don't think Mr. Trump wants to know every individual there. He wants to know what they're doing there. Are they legally there? Harvard won't even tell us that. And training Chinese Communist Paramilitary Center, I don't get that at all. What's that doing on any college campus, much less Harvard?
Yeah. Well, two points. Number one, Harvard, of course, is upset about the money. The American taxpayer sends them hundreds of millions, billions of dollars for research, and they skim a lot of that money off the top and use it, because money is fungible, to run the rest of their university and to teach kids foolishness. Here's what Harvard's really upset, though, besides about the money. Harvard says, Mr. President, we'll do better. President Trump has said, okay, I want you to select a third party arbiter, if you will, to watch over you. We, the federal government, has to agree to it. But you say you're going to do better, but we want to just double check and be sure. That's what Harvard really objects to. What Harvard wants to do is lie to us and say we're going to do better. We're going to stop using racial quotas, for example. We're going to stop hurting Jewish people, and wait until there's a Democratic administration. Now, I don't trust them. I mean, that doesn't mean I don't love Harvard, but I play poker sometimes with my friends. They're all my friends, but I cut the cards every single time. So I think this idea of a third party to watch over them, that Harvard would get to pick, but we would have to agree with the third party that they're the right party. I don't think it's being unreasonable. The alternative, Harvard doesn't have to do any of this. They're entitled to their opinion, but they're not entitled to get the money.
I was going to say.
So they've got to make a choice.
Right. Nobody said they have to take the money. I mean, you got like a Hillsdale College in the Midwest. They don't take any federal money. None. Nada. Zero. Well, maybe Harvard wants to go that route.
Harvard's in the same place that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and NPR are. They can say what they want on their television and radio stations, but they're not entitled to taxpayer dollars.
That's right.
And that's the same situation with Harvard and some of these other universities. But again, I want to say All really great private universities aren't like that. And there are others, but the two exceptions I can think of are Chicago and Vanderbilt. They practice viewpoint diversity.
Yes, sir. Just last one. We're always running out of time, Senator Kennedy. Love having you here. Vladimir Putin, it's time for Mr. Trump and the U.S. Senate to get much tougher on Putin. Trump called him going crazy. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not true. Are you fixing to step up some sanctions on Russia, or how do you see it, sir?
Well, yes, we should. The president says Putin has changed. He hasn't changed. Putin is and always has been a pirate. He's got blood under his fingernails. He's a butcher of his own people. And he's not going to change his behavior until he's forced to. The president, I think, wants him to change, but hope is not a strategy. What we need to do is choke China, or rather Russia, to death financially. Russia can't make it without oil. We can choke off their oil sales with what's called secondary sanctions, and then they'll be forced to come to the table.
Yes.
And in my opinion, I've said this for a while, President Trump needs to make it clear to Putin that if he doesn't want to come to the table and negotiate a reasonable settlement, we'll hit them so hard that they may get better, but they'll never get well. And we can do that by choking off his oil sales.
Yes, sir.
But right now, hoping they'll do better, hope's not a strategy, man.
Yep.
You got to hit Putin right between the eyes.
Yep. I think I agree with you. In fact, I know I agree with you. Anyway, Senator John Kennedy, great state of Louisiana. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much. All your wisdom.
Thanks, man.
All right, first off, I'll give credit where it's due. Senator Kennedy's got charm. He's witty, and sure, he knows how to speak plainly. But beyond the Southern drawl and clever metaphors, there's some serious misdirection going on here, and we need to talk about it. So Kennedy criticizes the SALT deduction changes, claiming it only benefits rich blue states like New York and California. Here's the thing. Yes, it helps residents in high-tax states, but let's be honest, those states pay more into the federal system than they get back. States like Louisiana, his own, are net takers. If we're going to talk about fairness in spending, let's talk about how red states disproportionately rely on federal aid while complaining about taxes paid by the blue states that fund them. That's the hypocrisy. Now, let's get into his Harvard rant. He calls it an indoctrination mill. Seriously? This is classic right-wing culture war nonsense. Instead of addressing real threats, income inequality, climate change, crumbling infrastructure, they'd rather punch down on institutions that still try, imperfectly, to promote critical thinking and diversity. And about DEI, Kennedy frames it as anti-Semitic, which is an extremely loaded and frankly irresponsible claim. Fighting for racial and gender equity is not mutually exclusive with fighting anti-Semitism. In fact, they should go hand in hand. But the right loves to conflate these issues to divide us. Kennedy says Harvard can have opinions, but shouldn't get public funding if they don't conform to a certain ideology. Let's break that down. He's literally suggesting ideological vetting before funding educational institutions. That is not small government. That is not freedom. That's government overreach. You can't say you're defending the Constitution while pushing for state control over speech and thought in higher education. He suggests redirecting Harvard's research money to DARPA. Now, don't get me wrong, I support funding science and tech, but DARPA is a military research agency. He wants to defund higher education to militarize innovation. That's not investing in America. That's doubling down on surveillance and defense contractors while gutting civilian knowledge. Now, toward the end, he gets tough on Putin. And you know what? I agree. Putin is a threat to democracy, globally and here at home. But let's be real. Kennedy's party had 4 years to confront Putin under Trump, and they didn't. Trump literally cozied up to him while downplaying election interference. So spares the tough talk now. Look, as a progressive and as a patriot, I want a strong, smart, and fair America. That means investing in education, supporting diversity, and protecting our democratic values, even when it's inconvenient. Senator Kennedy might be entertaining, but under the surface, it's the same old playbook: distract, divide, and defund what makes us stronger. So what do you think? Should taxpayer money come with ideological strings? Or should education be a space for all viewpoints, even the ones powerful people don't like? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in truth over theatrics, and I'll see you next time right here on True Voice.